Welcome to our thought process and what we do each and every week, where we just go cold turkey. There's no preparation for this, but we're going to take a second look at the divisions and what may or may not have changed from our original video, because there's certainly a lot of changes in perspective. So you're going to see us completely just off the cuff, going through our process of just, throwing ideas back and forth and such. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. Ron, why don't you lead things off and take us someplace?
Okay, I'll take you someplace. Basically, since the shows, I've done little to no extra work on the NFL for good reason, because after June 1st, from June 1st to August 15th, it's pretty quiet, a signing here or there, a trade here or there, but it's easy to keep up if you've done all the work in March, April, May, and June. And that's pretty much what I've done. But now I'm knee deep in it. So as we go back and we revisit what we talked about and what we've already done, of course, I've already have 16 season win totals and other futures and so on. I'm going game by game now. I'm putting the finishing touches on my report, and things could be changing just a little. And that's probably the purpose of our conversation right now. Where are we right now? And I might be in a different place in 5 days, but where are we right now?
Well, I think we both agree that we're willing to pivot early in the season, and that we don't, while we work months and months on this and we do a lot of work, we're not married to any ideas, because it can change on a dime. And we're going to have a very interesting show on Monday on a topic that I have never seen anybody else do. So we're looking forward to that show. I have to throw that in there. And you know what? Why don't you guys subscribe to our channel while we're at it? We never ask you guys to do that. So our process is to just cold discuss, bring up certain things. I know I've got new opinions on, let's start with the AFC East. We're going to run through the AFC on this video. For me, the Jets, kind of looked like they were an over initially, and now they're kind of looking at it as an under. The tough schedule. They had the quarterback injury. It's hard to really get behind the Jets. Not that we were ever really on them, but they seem a little bit more inconsequential this year. No real change, in my opinion, from the first video. How about you?
Well, for the Jets were interesting because they had a wonderful draft, and then you have to separate the draft from what's really going to happen in 2022. And once I did that and I saw the numbers creep up 5.5, 6 on season wins, I'm saying, find me that 6.5. That's what I want. Brutal first 9 games. We're not going to call it up, but everybody could look it up. It's a brutal first 9 games. Yeah. And then Becton, the offensive tackle, he's back, he's not back, and so on. And things started to happen with him, and I couldn't wait anymore. So I am in on under 6. Then obviously the situation developed with their quarterback, who might be missing a couple of games. And you got Joe Flacco going against some pretty solid teams. Sure, he has experience. So I believe my feeling on the Jets has just crystallized into a full-blown, I don't see how they can win 7 games, and 6 would be a push.
Yeah, so we're in agreement on that. Let's go to the Patriots. The Patriots are certainly an enigma, because I think that they can get out a little bit okay to start. I've been hearing this really interesting stat going around about second-year quarterback success exceeding season win totals by a full game, by somebody that knows what they're doing. And I found that to be very interesting, as opposed to teams that have rookie quarterbacks that are not meeting the season win totals on average. So we've got a second-year quarterback. Boy, all the news is negative. You've got the, Patricia, who I hate and despise play calling. He's, was supposed, he started off as a defensive guy. He ruined the Lions for a few years, and now he's back in New England. I just can't I mean, I think we're in this position where you just can't dismiss Belichick and his ability. So I'm not interested in looking at them negatively, but I am not optimistic that they can meet last season's performance. And there was low expectations last year. Let's not forget. They exceeded expectations by quite a bit. So what are your thoughts on it?
This is a case in where I had no opinion on New England for the longest time. And now that I'm going through the stuff and I'm listening to all the negativity and I'm looking at what they did in the preseason, and I understand that preseason is mostly meaningless, but I still pick out nuggets. It's something in my report that I used to put in, does the preseason mean anything? And I think I've gotten an edge that way. And when I looked at New England, this is just yesterday, actually, I saw a defense that's pretty much ready to go. Their stat sheet looked pretty good in August. They played a lot of people. I'm just looking to see whether or not any of the starters played a game or two. I don't care what their stats are. I just want to know that they were in the lineup and they had a little bit of game action for chemistry reasons. I think we're sweeping on New England just a little. I'm not playing them. I'm just going into the season with a very open mindset, and I'm not willing to buy some of the negativity that I've seen so far.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. And we're going to see something new. Supposedly they're going to be a little bit more up tempo, and they start off with Miami, with a young quarterback, new coaching staff. They might be able to get off to a nice start against Miami, even though, we'll get to the Dolphins next. I'm kind of optimistic on the Dolphins. So I don't know whether I think the over was just played yesterday and moved up a point and a half. So the up tempo is no secret. What are your feelings about his ability to quarterback an up tempo offense?
I like Tua a lot, and I think they gave him the weapons.
Jones from New England.
Oh, Jones for New England. We're still on New England.
Yeah.
I think he can do that. I think he's smart. He went through the Saban offense. I don't see any problem. The limitations are the fact that their wide receivers are a pretty average group, and Belichick is still going to be run-centric with this team. They drafted 2 running backs. They had at one point 5 in the room that were capable of NFL starters. In a league where running back is devalued, Belichick is playing the chess checkers game again. Everybody is devaluing them, so I'm just going to grab a couple more. So I think they're going to shorten games again, and they'll wing it on with Jones on misdirections and some other stuff, but they're not going to ask him to go into a pass-centric offense.
Yeah, and I think we've learned in the past that teams can be quite successful as long as the quarterback can just not make mistakes at critical times. And Jones is a smart guy. He just seems like a work guy that can get it done if he needs to. So he's got great coaching. He did it, and I'm with you. I'm going to lean positive on the New England, but boy, it just does seem like they could go south also. But I definitely lean toward them being relevant. Going on to the Dolphins, I really like them. I mean, I just think Tua has all the tools he possibly can need on offense, and the defense wasn't that bad. So talk me out of liking the Dolphins.
This was a pivot for me. This is why we have these conversations, March, April, May, June. We talked about this already. The new coach, they're going to go in the tank. Then he designs this team that benefits Tua with all the guys that you can turn a 5-yard completion into 85 yards with Waddle or with Tyreek Hill. They've upgraded the running game. Still concerned on the offensive line. My big concern is whether or not the new coaching staff will get the same out of the defense that the old coaching staff got.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to talk about this on Monday, like you sort of teased out what we're going to talk about with Miami playing New England. So I won't get into my feelings about that game and what it might mean until Monday. I'm slightly positive on this team. I really got to see how it all meshes together. It's a culture change from Flores to the new coach. And so I'm not ready to pull any triggers right now.
No, me either. that's a hurry up and wait on them. But I definitely am optimistic, and I'm going to kind of surprise people here. I got a funny feeling Buffalo's going to hit some obstacles this year, and I'm not exactly sure whether it's on the injury front or the schedule that they have or the high expectations, but I just have an uneasy feeling that they're just getting too much of a free pass, and um, their schedule has, bumps in the road that can kind of cause some issues, and they've remained, if I'm not mistaken, they've stayed very healthy, and it just seems like they're due to not have that same injury luck. Am I wrong there?
Well, first of all, Chris, I like the fact that you're going to go a different way from the general public in terms of thinking there could be bumps in the road. I think it's good to have an opinion that doesn't always go with the norm. I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo, with the expectations, has to find its footing a little bit before they absolutely hit the ground running, although I hope it's not week one, because I have a play on Buffalo already against the Rams, but that's a different story. They do have an Achilles heel in terms of the secondary. They have some injuries back there. They're breaking in a rookie cornerback. That's hard to do. I think they're just loaded at a lot of positions. They've used the draft well. Their GM's great. Their coach is great. Josh Allen has the 2022 quarterback profile we like. Sacks are going to be ramped up. I really see this team as increasing pass pressure. They've carefully looked at that area. They've added 3 or 4 sack specialists over the last couple of years. I'm not going to run to the window betting that they're going to make the Super Bowl, but they are my highest power rated team. I do think you'll see some bumps in the road, especially if the secondary doesn't get its act together. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did have a game where you see them as a 7, 8, 9 point favorite and they lose outright.
Let's not forget they had to dump, probably a guy that was going to contend to be the best punter in the league, and now they've got to replace him on the fly when everybody's already has jobs. So we've got a special teams issue there with punting, which is a shame. And, just something to be aware of, because those little things, we've seen it with the Chargers, as you've pointed out time and time again, that if you don't have your special teams 100% in order, bad things happen.
Yep. Well, let's move on to to a very contentious division all of a sudden. We both had some positive thoughts about Baltimore all the way through, but maybe some of the other contenders are better than we think. So this is going to be really interesting discussing this. Any thoughts on Baltimore to start?
Yeah, well, I mean, we all obviously saw the last place schedule, the injury. They had the worst injury luck, I believe, in the history of the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, last year. One of the things that I see a lot of people criticizing Jackson about is that he didn't play well last year. And not one of these guys that criticized Jackson even bothered to mention that the reason he had that slow start is because they started last year with the intention of trying to not have him run as much, and they wanted him to focus on trying to be a pocket passer. I haven't heard anybody say that. And Jackson's just a marvel. I mean, he is a special talent. He's got all the tools around him. They're obviously not, wide receiver deep. They're going to let him run this year. And when he runs, very interesting things happen. He's got some short yardage help that he can throw the ball to. I think he's just set up, and I think Baltimore's set up to have a very good year. I don't see a way that they lose that division. I just don't see a way.
Well, I'm going to really emphasize the points you made there. First of all, his left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, was missing much of the year. Obviously, all his running backs. They tried to be something they're not. Right. Pass the ball, get in the pocket or whatever. And now they say, the hell with that. We trade our number 1 receiver. We bring in 2 tight ends as rookies to go with Andrews, and one of them is lighting up the league in August. So, they're good to go from that standpoint. They've drafted well how many years in a row? 10, 15, whatever it is. They're deep. I think I know I haven't changed my opinion on Baltimore, but I have upgraded some of the other teams that they face. Let's put it.
And let's not forget the Ravens. Had the best kicker in the league, and that really helps. That really helps a team. Let's go down to Pittsburgh, and I'll start that off with. I'm pretty consistent, I think, with what I said before. I haven't changed much. If anything, I'm just a little bit more optimistic. I just think everybody was ready to poo-poo the Steelers, and everybody knows Tomlin's never had a losing year, and that actually doesn't mean all that much. But their defense is going to be one of the best in the league. You've got a mobile quarterback versus a statue. You've got a quarterback that can throw downfield versus a noodle arm. And you've got running backs. The offensive line sucks, obviously. It's one of the worst. It's probably going to be the worst in the league, and that's the one concern with this team.
Yeah, when Tomlin talks, people should listen. Because he told you when he was going to play tighter pass defense. He told you when he was going to rush the passer. Now he tells you he wants a mobile quarterback because he wants to do new things with the offense. And he's got one in Trubisky who is accurate as well. The two concerns, one of them you mentioned is the offensive line. It's a mess. And the other thing is that Najee Harris, I think it's Najee Harris, their running back, he's not completely healthy. And there's not exactly a lot of people behind him that can carry the load. And it's
what's his problem? I don't even know what his problem is.
I think I don't know offhand, but I know he missed a ton of time. He did come back and play a few snaps week 3 in the preseason. In fact, Tomlin did something interesting. He had a lot of his starters play week 3, which is against the grain. Nobody got hurt, but there were 2 scares. Remember, wide receiver Johnson and TJ Watt both left early for precautionary reasons. And had any one of those 2 gone down, that would have been terrible. This is wide receiver U in a way, and Pickens from Tennessee looks good as well. I was flat on this team. I'm looking forward to them. I did take them week 1 against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I did also. I took +7. Let's not forget, TJ Watt missed almost the whole season, if I'm not mistaken. They were really injury ridden and had low expectations and somehow made it to the playoffs. It's just remarkable. You can never dismiss them at this point, not with what they have. I think this entire division is probably underrated. Let's go to the team that's the most underrated right now is the Cleveland Browns, and I just don't understand it. They are stacked, and if they just get adequate quarterback play that doesn't make dumb mistakes, I think that they're going to be a team to contend with. I really do, week to week.
Well, here's my overriding question, and the answer, if it's a yes, puts them in the playoffs. And I remember when Tyrod Taylor was not ready at all to enter the NFL. And from sitting and learning and developing, he became certainly not a top 20 quarterback, but a guy who could steer the ship and did not turn the ball over. If Jacoby Brissett is that guy, Cleveland has everything else.
Yeah.
They have the line. They certainly have the running backs. They're really stacked on defense in a number of positions. They bring back some key guys who might have left during free agency. If he doesn't turn the ball over with a confidence building September schedule, why can't Cleveland contend?
Yeah, they should start 4. They can easily start 4-0. And when you get on a roll like that, good things seem to happen. Where is the weakness on this team other than quarterback at the moment? I don't even know. How are their special teams?
Special teams are fine. It's competent. They have some good returners, actually, because they have some third stringers that could be first stringers at running back and on other teams playing and returning the ball. The good news for them also is the fact that the expectations are lowered in terms of prime time affairs.
I forgot to mention that.
Yep. So they have a very reasonable, we talk about being creatures of habit and understanding, you and I, what we're doing on Tuesday and Wednesday and so on in preparation for the NFL. Players and teams are the same way. And if they don't have to prepare for extra Mondays or Sunday nights, it's a perk. And yep. Cleveland has that this year.
So we're pretty much in agreement that the ceiling is high, much higher than the average public thinks it is. I you know what, I just cannot see them flaming out. I mean, unless the quarterback play is just absolutely abysmal and embarrassing. I think they can even overcome some bad quarterback play. I think that they're that good and well-rounded.
So if you put all that together, and we talk about these three teams, this is why I don't have high expectations for Cincinnati, because we just talked about three teams that look pretty good. And Cincinnati may have had a little bit of luck to get to 11 wins last year. Now they've got 5 primetime games instead of 1. They got the Super Bowl remorse and stuff like that. They're retooling their offensive line, which takes time. Okay, Chris, tell me about why I should change my mind about Cincinnati.
I'm not going to change your mind about Cincinnati. You missed that they have the first place schedule also, which isn't going to help them.
That's true.
But I will give them this credit, that I do not believe that they are the type of team that a typical Super Bowl losing team becomes. I mean, the history of Super Bowl losers is not, pretty. I think, Burrow's just an amazing talent. And when you have that talented of a quarterback, they've added a lot of tools. I mean, I think that they're actually better. They should be better than they were last year, but I think they got a lot of lucky breaks along the way that they're not going to get this year. And as you mentioned, all those primetime games really muck things up. And it's a disruptor, and it changes habits, and it's just not good. I think Cincinnati's still going to be a good team, maybe even better than last year, but I'm not sure that that's going to help them this year.
If I lose this play, it's because Joe Burrow is that good. And that is possible, because there's something about, remember when Peyton Manning had his first 2, 3, 4 years, horrible defense, a lot of, they had to build the talent around him, and they didn't. Their offensive line was as bad as Cincinnati's, or almost as bad as Cincinnati's. But Joe Burrow is the real deal, and that could cost me. But there's too many negatives for me, and too many tough divisional games for me to get completely on the bandwagon. If they're in another division, we're not having this conversation. They might win the next division we talk about with Indy and Tennessee, but they're not in that division.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick right now, I would pick Cincy for last and still say they could be a better team than last year. It's a goofy scenario. I mean, it's
interesting, highly interesting.
Yeah. So we're off to the AFC South, which I think we can concur is the Colts to lose. Once again, I think the 6th or 7th new quarterback each consecutive year. It just seems like they're in very, very, very good shape to win this division. And there's a lot of people that have aspirations, that they can go all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm not so sure about that. They had goofy lapses on defense, and there is not a significant upgrade on defense this year, unless I'm wrong. Is there a significant increase?
No, and Leonard's fighting injury again. He's possibly their most impactful player on defense.
He's critical to their defense, because I've been watching him for the last 2 years, and when he's out, good things don't happen. I really worry about their porous defense from last year, so that's why I don't really take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender. But in this division, I don't see a way they can lose unless they just get decimated with injuries.
Okay, seize the day is what I was hoping Indianapolis would do. When we left the divisional previews, we both were saying, this is Indy's division to lose. Well, Indy could still lose it because I was hoping when they lost their defensive coordinator, the new one would play a little bit more pressure defense. I know 3 preseason games could be absolutely meaningless, but when you allow, again, over 70% in 3 meaningless preseason games, it means you're not changing the scheme. Yeah. That's all I care about with new coordinators and stuff, is the scheme changing. And for Indy, if they're going to play that soft zone again, the only thing that separates Indy from Tennessee, in my opinion, is the schedule. Because Indy has the easiest AFC schedule, in my opinion, and Tennessee has to play those 3 first-place opponents. I thought Indy could seize the day, and I don't think they have seized the day. So it's the schedule that puts me ahead, but they haven't won me over since we last talked.
No, I'm a little bit. I'm optimistic that they can do well, but I just can't get that bad defense out of my memory from last year. It was just infuriating. Every time I had them, they were giving up points. And as far as Tennessee goes, let's move on to them. I want to remind people, I never once had Tennessee as a top 10 team last year, and they got the number 1 seed in the AFC miraculously. So I don't see anywhere that I can say that they've improved, and you can say that they have lost tools from last year. So when you add what you mentioned with the tougher schedule and the Colts an easier schedule, it would not surprise me to see the Titans finish in 3rd place this year. What are your thoughts?
Interesting concept there. I also was like you. I had them when the playoffs started. They were my 12th rated team on power ratings. So you say, okay, well, that's bad. But Indy wasn't that much better. So basically, even with if they were the 12th rated team again this year, it would be neck and neck with Indy. Because of what we just talked about. So it's not that they can't win the division. It's just that they're not that great a team.
I don't think they are. They haven't been. They got, what, they went on that run where they beat around 4 or 5 top tier teams. And then the rest of the season, they were kind of fumbling around, if that makes any sense. They got off to a poor start, and then they went on fire, but they still, on my metrics, were not doing well. Some ways.
They're a matchup nightmare for some types of teams, but in other games, they kind of win ugly. With the running game, a couple of strategic coaching decisions. He's a good coach and stuff like that. But if we put Pittsburgh in this division and I think they could win it. If we put Indy in Pittsburgh's division, if we put Tennessee in Indy's,
they've got
Pittsburgh's division, do they go? Are they a last place team?
Yeah,
quite possibly.
Sure. Yeah.
So, really, when you say 3rd place, when we talk about Jacksonville and Houston, that's where we have to see, can these teams at least contend with the top 2 or be competitive with them?
Well, you know what, I'm not on the Jacksonville boat, so to speak, but I cannot shake the bad taste of Urban Meyer out fast enough. And when you consider the probably the worst coaching effort in the history of the NFL last year, and you compare to the new coaching that players love, and they're going to actually get some real coaching. You've got a quarterback that's supposed to be very, very good. And, he was put in a lot of positions to fail last year. And that's one of the issues. I just think Jacksonville would not surprise me to see them, flirt with 7-8, 8-7, which could potentially be better than what I think the Titans' floor is, so to speak.
Okay.
They spent a fortune on free agency. They filled a lot of holes. The team is going to be significantly different. The thing that I worry about with the new coaching and the new regime is, are they going to get out of the gate fast? If they don't, then that could be contagious, or vice versa. If they get out of the gate fast, that could be contagious. What do you think?
Well, yeah, winning is contagious, and they didn't exactly win in August. I like new coaches to at least get something going. we're not, or let me just say, I'm not going to have an opinion that I like on all 32 teams. There's going to be cases where I don't know what I'm getting into. With last year, it was clearly the Philadelphia Eagles the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season until after their bye, and we discovered stuff. This year, it might be Jacksonville. I think their variability is enormous, partly because maybe we just throw out last year because Urban Meyer was in the room because he was that bad.
Yeah.
This roster is improved. They were expected to win 7 games last year, and maybe the roster could have, with a coach who cared. And if we think they're improved and their number was 6.5 or 7 last year, where could they be this year? I think Lawrence is going to make second-year mistakes, learning a new system. But I think there's a little bit more talent around him. I wish there was better talent at tight end and offensive line. Again, young quarterbacks' best friends, offensive line and tight end, and that's the weakest part of that team. They have some injury concerns at running back, so they're not going to be able to run their full offense. But they're going to be improved, and they're going to be competitive, and that's the biggest difference. And if they sneak out a couple of games early, then it gets contagious.
Exactly. The only serious problem I see is overpaying Kirk. Wide receiver.
He's not a number one. He's not a wide receiver.
He's not even a number one receiver, and you're giving him top tier money. That's one thing that I worry about. But Houston, I'm not down on Houston this year. Mills, Mills has some really interesting positive stats and negative stats, and I'm the only thing I'm down on Houston about is the coach, who Lovey saw some success 15 years ago in the NFL, but his college performance was so abysmal. You just can't get that taste out of your mouth either. I just feel like, you've got a lot of veterans scattered about, so veterans. And when you get that situation, they want to play hard. They want to stay in the league. They're not going through the paces. So I just see some sort of, and their injury bug last year really hit them hard. So I see optimism that they're going to be a better team, despite Lovie Smith.
Okay. I have 2 major concerns, but I'm extremely disappointed that I only have 2 major concerns, because what I saw in August scares me, because, I went immediately on an under 5 win total there. I don't like Lovie Smith at all.
I
think he's past his understanding of what works in the NFL. The other thing I don't like is the complete roster upheaval over the last 2 years. Last year with the more or less interim coach Cully, it was a meet and greet. I said this several times. They had 40 new players on the roster. Now they got 30 new players on the roster. Basically, from 2020 to now, there's 1 or 2 handsful of people that are still on the team, and probably like 2 or 3 starters overall since 2020. That is an enormous chemistry issue. But Davis Mills as quarterback, he has something special going along. For his low volume in college, coming out a year early, I thought he could develop into a competent quarterback. I did not think I would see what I've seen so far. So I think he's way ahead of the curve, and that's scary if you don't like Houston, because he shows something. The running game is going to be improved. They just added under the radar wide receiver, Tyler Johnson from Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
That I just can't believe Tampa Bay let him go. I understand the reasoning, because they said he doesn't return kicks and they needed, wide receiver 3, 4, 5 to return kicks. But this guy has wide receiver 2 possibilities. And for Houston, that's huge. So you mentioned it, and I agree. They have veterans that are not great players, but they're fringe starters and they want to stay in the league. I think that's an excellent point. They're going to play hard. Lovey's a players type coach. They may overexceed what they're going to do, but I'm just hoping they're going to make brain dead decisions on crunch time, and that the chemistry just isn't quite there. And the pass defense is going to be 70% and come from behead losses. I like a little too much this preseason, but I'm still down on them.
There's no reason to automatically assume that just because you have 30 new people, that they can't be cohesive and do well. I mean, you look at the movie Major League; those guys were a bunch of bums and they won it all. So, why can't? All right, so we'd hope this it would go a little bit faster. We've got one division left, and one of the most confusing teams in the league, which I have absolutely no opinion of, and they're an enigma, is the Las Vegas Raiders. Do you have any pulse on them that you feel confident about?
Yeah, well, I have a confusing team in the league in that division, but it's not them. The Raiders are a better team. They have Chandler Jones. They have Devontae Adams. They also have a brutal schedule, especially with schedule placement, which matters to me. They're bringing in, a new coaching staff again. They've rid themselves of just about every Mike Mayock and John Gruden draft pick, so they're starting over in a number of positions. They have no offensive line. They have no depth. They drafted a couple of running backs, a couple of guards. They drafted interesting but not meaningful positions last year. Maybe the stars carry them through. It's almost like a mini Rams where the stars, Ramsey and Donald, carry them through. Maybe you got Adams and you've got Crosby and you've got Chandler Jones carrying them through. But on a week-to-week basis, I don't see 10 wins.
I don't either. And, Colin Cowherd's been praising Derek Carr for a couple of weeks. And, apparently he leads the league in fourth quarter comebacks since he entered the league, which I didn't know. And he's got a handful of other stats that he pulls out of his rump on Carr. And because I've always kind of dismissed Carr as kind of, less than just kind of average, high expectations, a little bit lower than the expectations, but still, better than average. Wouldn't you put him there?
Yeah. I put him very close to the top 10. To me, Carr and Kirk Cousins, who gets maligned a lot, yeah. I think both of those guys have similar traits. Deadly accuracy, tend not to turn the ball over, have command of the team. They may have not had command of the coach in Cousins' case, but Carr's the leader of the team. You've got a guy like Adams who wanted to play with him.
Yeah.
So, that's meaningful. I think they're a good team, but it's kind of like the situation that we talked about with Cincinnati.
Yeah.
This is a brutal division. They've got a brutal schedule. The schedule placement isn't that good. We'll see what happens, but would it surprise me if they contended for 9 or 10 wins? No.
I've got to believe the Broncos are your tough team to judge.
Yeah.
Am I right?
You are absolutely right. Pythagorean theorem would say that they should have been 10-7 last year, but there was a reason why they were 7-10. Horrible coaching. Offensively with Vic Fangio, who couldn't muster the offense. And obviously in a quarterback-driven league, you don't want Drew Lock necessarily as your starting quarterback. So what do you do with this team who's going to have a little bit of a downside defensively, in my opinion? It's already starting to show. They're going to have a tough schedule because they have all these opponents in the league. But they also have Russell Wilson, who's an incredible upgrade in terms of quarterback play. He's got weapons. He's got the offensive line that he's probably only had in his dreams that could protect him. So where do we go from a team that on paper may have been with better coaching 10-7 last year, and now their over-under is 10?
Well, and you know what, that offensive line that that's good. Part of what has made Wilson a good quarterback is the unpredictability, the fact that he has to get out of the pocket and you don't know what he's going to do. So if he's going to be able to be more of a pocket passer, how do you think he's going to do that way?
That's going to be interesting because he's going to force some throws, but he's also so instinctive that he's going to make big plays happen when other quarterbacks do not. I think that offensive line is going to have to learn to block for a quarterback that's more mobile than what they've had in the past. They're going to have to learn to extend their blocks and not hold. So there might be a learning experience there, But the other good news is they have two very capable running backs who ran for almost exactly the same amount of yardage last year, roughly 950 each. This is a pretty balanced team. I want to be bullish on them, but something scares me, and it scares me a little bit defensively. I just need to see what it's all about for them.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat with you. The thing that has not been mentioned is there's very high expectations, and when you have high expectations, that potentially puts some pressure on a team because, as you mentioned, they may get out of the gate slow also. So you could have these two issues merge and cause some problems early on. You pick Kansas City or the Chargers. You lead with one of them.
Let's go with Kansas City. I like to save comedy for last. Kansas City is deeper than they've ever been, but they're missing two important cogs. So how much does the leader of your defense, Tyrann Mathieu, matter, and your playmaker on offense, Tyreek Hill, matter? Because the rest of the team, that offensive line is locked and loaded. Mahomes, he's pretty good. Travis Kelce is going to be back fully healthy. And they're a lot deeper, and they're going to have a sneaky good pass rush.
Where are they deeper?
Where are they deeper? On the defensive line, they're deeper. At linebacker, they've added a really stud playmaker last year and one more this year. Believe it or not, they stole another offensive lineman in a draft this year. So there's they got 6 starters deep. That position is good. I like I like the potential of the wide receiver group. I know Tyreek Hill's gone, but the guys they have, I like them. So I would consider those to be the areas that they're a little deeper in.
I'm going to take the opposing view with you. Okay. I'm not predicting this. I'm just saying I believe it's possible that Kansas City doesn't even make the playoffs. And there's just so many teams in the AFC that are good. And Kansas City is going to be lucky if they see 4-3 after 7 games. The first 7 games are just brutal. I look at their defense not being as good as it was last year, my thoughts. And when you lose the explosiveness of Hill, that was really important for Kansas City. Yeah. And that loss of explosive play quality, that makes their offense a little bit worse, even if their offensive line is better. So if they're not quite as good as last year, and they weren't all that last year, it's not out of the question that they could miss the playoffs with that schedule. Am I crazy?
Well, my first thought is this is why I love this impromptu discussion, because I'm feeding off what you're saying. You might be feeding off what I'm saying. And so I could agree and disagree. You bring up a very good point about Hill, because teams tried to make Mahomes dink and dunk all year. And now he's going to have to dink and dunk because he doesn't have the guy who could stretch the field that way. Although Sky Moore is a sneaky guy at wide receiver, a rookie, that might eventually fill that role. But I will disagree with you a little bit on the defense. I do think this is going to hinge on their pass rush. And if I'm right that the pass rush is better, then they're going to be better defensively. If I'm wrong, all bets are off.
Right. And again, for me, I just keep an open mind. It's not a strong prediction. They very well could win that division and be just fine. If, as you mentioned, the defense is good and the offense is not going to be the same. Do we have any? If you think the defense is a little bit better and the offense is going to be a little bit more deliberate and not have those explosive plays, are the totals going to be overrated on this team?
I guess it depends. When you have a gunslinger like Mahomes, you never completely know in terms of that. But you're right. I think the point defense is going to be a little bit better, if I'm right, which will hold down some scores. Maybe you've got a point there in going there. And I also want to say that I wouldn't disagree with you that they may not make this playoffs. I don't want to dismiss them, but this is not a walk in the park because, like you said, the AFC is locked and loaded. And if you take just offense and defense and then you ignore special teams, Kansas City's not the best team in the division.
Well, I think the best team in the division is likely the Chargers, and we've spoken ad nauseum about the special needs, special teams, and I like what I hear out of camp. Herbert setting an example of doing extra laps and extra drills with the football when he doesn't need to be, and we already know his talent potential. So this team just seems stacked, and the only question is, are they going to get the proper coaching? And we know that they made a little bit of an upgrade in special teams, but is it enough?
As Matt Landis pointed out, they had a botched snap somewhere in week 1 or 2 in the preseason. And as unfortunately I pointed out, they allowed a long kick return and a long punt return in the same game to the same guy who's not a bona fide kick returner or a punt returner. What was it? 42-yard average kick return against them in August, 31-yard average punt return in August. Pay attention. Nebraska tried an onside kick and it failed against Northwestern. I mean, the same things happen. If you don't correct your mistakes, how do you get better? Because if Khalil Mack has anything left in the tank, and if we finally see the Chargers actually rush the passer, the secondary is one of the best in the game. Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks, certainly ascending. They have very good pass catchers. Their offensive line has improved every year. What's not to like?
I think Mac's a little washed out, quite frankly. I don't think he's going to be able to stay healthy, and he's a step slower. But if you can get him for a quarter, or third, or half the season, really strong, that's going to help.
Manage his play, manage his snaps.
So, who's your pick to come out of the AFC number 1 seed?
Okay. I'm going to flip you on that and say Buffalo's the number 1 seed and Baltimore beats them in the title game.
I hope that happens because I have futures for them to make the Super Bowl. And
did that just for you then.
I know. You know what? I can't even answer my own question. I think it's between 3 teams, Chargers, Ravens, and Bills. And it's just going to take one of those 3 teams to get lucky. I never respect other people's Super Bowl picks, and I'm not going to sit there and isolate. But I think we narrow it down to that. I think we did a great job on this conference. We appreciate everybody listening. We went a little bit longer than we wanted to. This is the type of stuff that we do week to week, talking about point spreads, where we come in completely unprepared. We come in with whatever knowledge is in our heads, and we feel each other out, and we make dumb comments to each other. Well, I make the dumb comments to Ron, but we bounce the ideas off of each other, and I cannot stress enough the importance that I think Ron and I both feel about networking and sharing information and bouncing ideas about. Would you not agree with that, Ron?
Well, that's why I write. That's why I talk. And it helps not just to talk to yourself, but to talk to other knowledgeable people who can tell you, wait, you're missing this point, or add something extra to the conversation. So it's not just listening to us, but find somebody that you can talk to just as much, because it really does help. And the focus is staying in focus is so important week to week once we get into the meat of the season. And so I want to just thank Chris for doing this with me and having this opportunity to bounce ideas off one another.
Yeah, it's a blast. And you know what? I don't think during the regular season we change each other's minds too often, but it's not a matter of trying to convince each other that you're right. You share your information and you're going to go with what you want. And I think that when we're talking about games during the season, I think we've talked about it before. Well, if you're kind of on the fence and one of us makes a good argument, well, then that puts us over the top. Mm-hmm. And that's vice versa. If you're kind of like not sure of including something and the other guy, brings up some points of, then we leave that stuff off the table. Because as we were just talking about the other day, you've been analyzing your plays and your late plays have not done well. So You're not necessarily looking to add stuff late on a Saturday for college or Sunday.
No, yeah. The conversation I had is when I've added to plays I've already made and reinforced those plays, those have done really well. When I've had some on the fence games, they come in 2% to 2.5% lower with a win percentage. So games I haven't played that I've been playing the last 24 hours, not as good as I'd like it to be. Sometimes I'm waiting for a number, and if it hits, I'd like to think those are good, but they haven't performed as well as I'd like. But, every season's different. The sample sizes, you never know.
Well, I just finally finished my 2021 NFL analysis, which is I go back and I'm going to have all kinds of charts made within the next few days of evaluating every single angle. And I'm kind of disappointed that one of the angles I haven't been tracking, but I can go back and do, is I want to see my record based on when I place my bets on which day of the week. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised I never thought of doing that before. And that's going to be a project to do. But, when it comes to the NFL, everybody preaches that, if you're waiting till game day, you're not going to beat it. And quite frankly, I bet a fair amount on game day. So I'm waiting for lines to get into play, but I'm in a better situation where, I actually win 60% plus, losing closing line value. So I'm not as concerned with that as other people are to not bet on a Sunday. So just speaking off the cuff, you gave me a great idea I want to do, and I think it's important to go back. Ron does meticulous tracking. You probably got 40 years of stuff there that you can refer back to, but you go back and you dissect what you've done very carefully, right?
I do. I have to throw some of that out the window because it's the business of sports. I used to rely so much on the college data that I collected because coaches didn't change that much. But now we have 29 new coaches, 144 new coordinators, and so on and so forth. I can't be married to historical data as much as I used to be in the olden days. And I'm aware of that. But I do want to track changes so that I know when the point offense, when the scheme changed, and so on. I just can't say just because I was such and such on this team when I played them as a dog the last 10 years that that's going to necessarily continue because of all the coaching upheaval. But I still can learn from the data because I can pick up where I see some differences in how they might perform moving forward.
You gave me a great idea for a short video because I don't want to do it here, but I would like to discuss. Let's do a 15-minute video, within the next week or two, on the differences between people using models and the different people that are just using trends and knowledge and feel and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So on that note, we're going to be back. We've got at least 2 or 3 more videos coming out in the immediate future. Is Friday a go?
Friday, hopefully, is a go. I talked to our partner in crime, Ted, and he's recovering from surgery, but we're hopeful to a go to come up with a concept that we're going to use on Fridays. And of course, before then, we're going to be back with the NFC.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us. Hit the subscribe button if you like it, because we're going to be putting out a lot of different stuff, and we hope to have some short videos also. These long hour videos are not necessarily for everybody, but we're going to be putting out some short content occasionally also. So thanks for joining us. We're going to be out of here. If I can get this page to slide. Oh no, look at this mess. I can't delete this because I can't edit.
See you soon.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.